Welcome all. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. You're here today if you want to figure out what you can do beyond mindfulness. People have good intentions with mindfulness. We enjoy their good advice of breathing and calming thoughts and meditation and all the rest of it. But why do they give us that good advice in the moment that breathing helps, or when you are able to calm your nervous system, or some sort of medical explanation? When people have given you that advice yourself, why do you think they give it to you?
Because it works for them.
Oh, that's probably a really good answer. It does work for them. And you wonder as well if it works for them, if it really works for them in the moment, or if after you go home for the evening and you've had the revisiting of the experience and you're like, okay, I need to decompress from what happened today, but maybe not in the moment. People do have very good intentions. And the main reason that they offer that type of suggestion is to try and elongate the space in between your initial sort of trigger or instigating thought, to elongate the space between that thought and whether you react or respond. That space we want to make as long as possible. And how you do that is where everybody's good intentions and good suggestions come in with the wellness sort of overthought. So, how do we then strengthen that space in between? That takes cognitive control. And there's so many skills you can gain to have better cognitive control. And I'm just going to give you one or two today to help you hopefully get more space. So, how about an example from anybody who has one of when you wish you had more space between when something happened and when you actually said something afterwards that maybe was not exactly what you wanted? Any examples come to mind? So I get them all
I
the time. Oh, you have one?
yeah, I
Maybe?
was just gonna say, just
Yeah.
reminded me of at home and asking a kid to one of my kids to wash the dishes.
Mm,
And getting that response from them that they'll do it later, just kind of uh makes me want to, react right now, right then in the moment, so
right.
that
Yeah.
space would be good to,
Keep your
whatever.
mouth shut.
Yeah,
Mm.
just, yeah.
And sometimes it's not keeping our mouths shut. It's having that forward thinking, that cognitive control to have a fully formulated thought before we blurt out something. The fully formulated thought can be a blurt, but it's thought through and it's appropriate. Recently, a friend of mine was going to go back to work after a short illness, and we thought it was too soon. She thought it wasn't. And so when she sent out the email that said, I'm ready to go back to work,
Mm,
all of us panicked.
mm,
And I panicked and inappropriately sent a text to her instead of to someone else to sort of talk it through. I was trying to hold my thoughts, and I thought I was texting somebody else to say, "This is not good. It's too soon. I'm concerned. I'm worried. Maybe, who should call and tell them so and give them the 2 cents that's well thought through." And I sent it to her. So with good intentions,
mm.
she, of course, knew it was coming from a place of love, but then she had to explain it, and it just became a thing, and it wasn't supposed to be a thing. And we've worked through it, but that's sort of the newest that happened to me. And I was like, oof. And if I'd thought through for a minute, obviously, who I'm sending it to, but more so, what is the goal I'm trying to achieve? What is that goal of having these mindfulness suggestions, of getting more space? That's not really the goal. The goal is to make sure we have a well-formulated thought before our mouth opens. And in order to do that, we have to have a discussion with all the voices in our head. And that's what's really hard. But that's the goal of what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that our inner voice is heard and attended to. And if it's not, then it just comes blurting right out of our mouth. That's active control. So while there's lots of skills that I could give you after the fact, I want to give you one that's sort of a pre-skill, one that helps you before any of this even happens. And it may sound familiar, but I'm hoping this way of explaining it then makes it a new skill in your toolbox. The tool is to help you gain agency. And agency is sort of a word everybody knows, but then you say, well, what does it mean? And you're like, not too sure, but I know it. Right? So, agency is when we are sort of aware of what's happening. We don't necessarily have control over it yet, but we know it's happening and we know it's having an impact. The opposite of agency is not being aware that you even have this struggle. Then you're just floating along without any thought about it. So when we think about the suggestions that people are making, that sort of is starting to bring us agency towards what is not working that makes us want to instigate a tool. We can see that when we are wanting to quickly respond to our children who are not doing the dishes right when I ask them to. We don't usually ask to do the dishes in 3 hours or 3 days. It usually means right now. And so with that, we're like, okay, that I really want to say a lot more here. And you can hear the shouting in your head of all of those things that you want to say.
Mhm.
But we're practicing, okay, how do we get that space? So, how many of you have heard before of the explanation of your brain and the chemicals and all of how it works?
Yeah.
We've heard it.
Mhm.
We've heard it. We've all heard it. We know it. So, I want to give you a non-scientific explanation of your brain that hopefully you'll remember because none of us are going to remember all of the different chemicals and when they go off and what makes them go off and which chemical is doing what. And before you know it, you can't even pay attention anymore. So, this is a pre-tool so that you will know what your brain is doing automatically. You have no control over this. Your brain is going to do this no matter what, whether you want it to, whether you want it to stop. Its job is to keep doing its job. So our brain has really, you're going to go to fantasy land with me for a minute, and we're going to know for a fact for the next 10 minutes that our brain only has three parts. And it has that one job of alerting us to danger. That's it. That's all it's got. And so all of our synapses are firing and sending all kinds of information up through our spine, down here where it says information. It's sending all that data up into the first part of our brain. And the first part of our brain has a gate and it will not go up and let the data through until we tell the gatekeeper whether the information and the data is safe or unsafe. That's it. That's all it has to do. And with 11,000 pieces of information going into our brain a minute, most of them the gatekeeper has seen before, knows the drill, has a playbook for that piece of information, and will open the gate accordingly. So when we open the door or open the shower door and the cold rushes in, this is not the first time we've experienced that. The data goes up our spine. Yep, used to that, know what to do, gate opens. There's about 40 pieces of information that don't go automatically through the gate every minute. And we have to
Wow.
consciously then tell the gatekeeper safe or unsafe. It's not good or bad. There's no judgment. It just needs to know safe or unsafe. Then the gate opens for the second piece of data and the second area of the brain that takes the data. It's still not information yet, it's just data. And once it goes through and gets to the second part of the brain, that gatekeeper only wants to know how you feel about that data. What are you feeling about that whoosh of cold air coming in from the front door, the shower, in the reverse season, it could be the hot air coming in. Doesn't matter. What are you feeling? Some people might love it. Others can't stand it. Others don't really care. It's just getting out of the shower. Why are we talking about this? Doesn't matter what you feel. You just have to have a label for it. And once you label that, consciously or out of your mouth, you might say, that's cold. That's okay. You've labeled how you feel. It's surprising to you. Then that gate will go up and the data can get through to our frontal lobe where we can then think. If we're able to think, then we can determine what do we want to do about that data. Do we want to grab a towel? Do we want to air dry? Do we want to turn heat up or down? Do we want to whip our clothes on really fast and not put lotion on that day? I mean, whatever it is, you can think it through to make those choices. But the data, if it doesn't get through the first two gates, then it's stuck behind them. And it just sits there waiting for an answer, waiting and waiting and waiting. When it is sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting, you can get frustrated because you might not know how you feel about something. So if we go back to the original concept of why we're here and what is it that you want more space in between, we want space in between to have those thoughts. But if we're caught in, is it safe or unsafe? And how do I feel about it? You're going to get stuck there. And our brain does this wonderful thing to annoy you. It thinks you're not paying attention. And so it will kind of remind you to answer me, and it will get louder and louder and louder. So if we don't decide and we just stand in the bathroom or in front of the door and we haven't decided whether we're going to get a coat, go in, close the door, all the rest of it that you can't think about until it gets in the front, you're just going to sit there and it's going to get louder. Doors open, doors open, doors open, waiting for an answer. All of this going on inside of your head. If you didn't know that your brain had these three parts and that's what's happening, then you will blurt out the first thing that comes to mind to get those voices to quiet. All right, I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions, if there's an understanding, if there's any examples that you're thinking of, oh my gosh, that made me remember what?
I really like the shower example because that is pretty much exactly what it's like to take a shower in December in Virginia. That is every experience.
It made me think that your presentation just made me think of someone that I know, and I just automatic and this probably messes up everything, Marco. I'm so sorry, but it just made me think of, this person's gates are just always up.
Mm. So someone has mentioned that to me
Never
before,
closed.
where their gates are all the way up all the time.
Yeah.
And that was just recently someone was talking about that. They're like, I don't, this is ridiculous. I don't have that. I just determine everything's safe and I'm fine with it all because I want to get to the frontal lobe faster. I was like,
Mm.
okay, not to sound like Dr. Phil, but in the moment, I was like, well, how's that working for you? And she's like, it's awesome because I can do critical thinking all the time. And I was like, well, are you lying to yourself that everything's okay just to get there? And she's like, oh, yeah, lying to myself all the time. I was
Wow.
like, okay, so it might be efficient,
Mm. Mm.
but you're not being authentic. She's like, oh no, I'm not authentic at all. I'm just trying, she is overutilizing. If
Wow.
we're talking about getting to her it's overutilizing efficiency at the expense of feeling her emotions.
Mm.
So she's not even shopping for an emotion to answer the second in the second gate. Doesn't
Yeah.
even bother shopping for an emotion.
Yeah.
So it comes with its own problems. It is very efficient, but it is odd, you know?
Yeah.
So what's really interesting too, when we think about what's happening, there's lots of chemicals. I could bore you to tears with the chemicals, and it doesn't matter. When we have this thought, or we're instigated into an internal conversation, and we're trying to lengthen that space, if we get stuck, the chemicals will disperse over our brain. They'll disperse the first time when we come out of the shower and the whoosh, all of a sudden that's kind of a shock to our body. And the chemicals go push, it's safe, but wow, that was shocking. It's similar to when somebody in your family who loves you a lot might jump scare you from behind a door or out of the bathroom or something like that. And you can feel that's the only chemical you can feel is the adrenaline. And you feel it on the inside of your legs and in your head and probably in your hands. And you're like, oh, don't do that. And we laugh and we get over it. That chemical that spurts over our brain lasts about 10 seconds. And we have to wait for that to dissipate before we can think again. Because when it is covering our brain, we don't have access anymore. We just don't. So our brain is put on pause, waiting to see if it's safe, unsafe, how we feel about it. And then, right, do we need the initial, I got to kill somebody, and then we realize it's a joke, and we're like, oh, okay, ha ha ha. And then you'll notice that the chemical kind of goes away out of your body. If we don't decide how we feel about something, then our thoughts get stuck in there. And every time we are talking to ourselves, and we're getting frustrated with, I don't know how I feel about this, or maybe I should do this, and we're just kind of fighting with our own thoughts. A lot of times we're thinking about it over and over again in bed. We can't go to sleep because I just keep thinking about it, that ruminating kind of thought. We are refountaining ourselves. And so you have another 10 seconds to wait until you can get to the frontal lobe.
Mm.
So if we think about the shower and we're coming out of the shower and it is so cold and we're like, gee, did and then now all the swearing's coming out of our mouth and someone from the other room goes, quiet, I'm trying to sleep. Well, Jesus Christ, why couldn't we, and all of it, every time we re-engage with that emotion that we haven't labeled yet, we are refountain ourselves. And you have to wait another 10 seconds for that to go away. So, as much as you are trying to gain agency over what's happening and think clearly, that space is not elongating. We're helping it get shorter because we don't have access to the frontal lobe. So, if we want to create more space, we have to know that this is happening, be very frustrated, angry, happy, whatever emotion we're feeling, label it. Tell yourself, okay, I'm really mad right now. Then you will have access to your frontal lobe. But if you fight it, then you will refountain and you don't have access. Hmm. So I know we all do that. Or there would be nobody laying up awake in bed at night thinking about things over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference between agency and control. Agency now is just when we know it's happening, and automatically, by you knowing that this is happening in your brain, you have agency and you've gotten your first tool for your tool belt for control because now you won't fight it anymore. You can't unhear this. So, can you recognize those sensations as I explain them of when you get sort of stuck like that? You know it in your body and where you feel it. And that sensation, the faster you can recognize that, then the faster you can go back and say, okay, it's safe. I know it looks unsafe, but it's safe. Keep going. And I'm really annoyed with her right now for interrupting whatever. But then you can think about what you want to do about it. Okay. So I'll stop here again and see if anybody's made any connections. that you'd like to share?
I think sometimes I feel like I'm addicted to refountaining.
Oh,
Like,
how so?
I mean, just, sometimes you feel like you want to give yourself time to you don't want to get to that, you know, after the refountain, you want to stay right there, and because
Mm,
you feel safe, thinking about all these scenarios and reasons and what ifs. Um,
yeah.
I don't know. Is that weird?
No.
I mean,
No, it makes a lot of sense.
oh,
When I think
gosh.
about it, I was thinking of somebody else the other day who was just stuck, and why do we have to? And
Yeah.
why do we have to spend eight, nine, whatever $1,000 to get such and such fixed in the household when it's a 22-year-old thing? And I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
well, this is life. And, for me,
Mhm.
it was just thinking this is a cost of owning a home. You gotta buy the new thing, no matter how much it
Mhm.
costs. But the other person in the household is just ruminating over how much it costs and how are we going to pay for it and
Yeah.
when and where and why can't insurance and all this kind of stuff. And that is all being stuck and he doesn't know how he feels about it yet.
Yeah.
But the rest of us have to listen to that. While he is very busy feeling safe because nothing has changed yet. And if we don't talk about
Mm.
it, then I don't have to change it.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more
That's
comfortable.
it.
Let me
Yeah.
rationalize as much as I can until I can stay safe with things exactly the way they are.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, in respect of your time, and because you came to get one tool, maybe two, in the course of 30 minutes, how are you putting this together? Anybody have one thing they can share to say, I can see how I can use this the next time with who or under what circumstances? Somebody you have at work that you know automatically just sets you on fire just from looking at them. Anything. How could you use it?
I feel like, kind of to Vonda's point, one of the things that gets me fountaining is when I am asleep, I'm trying not to think of all of the different things. And so I think I
Mm,
can do a better job of just deciding in that moment, moving past, like how do I feel about it and just kind of going, okay, like, and coming to that decision. I think that's a really helpful reframe. And
mm,
it's cool to have the visual of almost like seeing like everything get stuck in this one portion of my
Yeah.
brain and not being able to move all the way through and kind of doing what I can to usher it to the next step so that I'm not just kind of stuck there awake
yeah,
thinking about this thing.
yeah. Ushering, that's a great word. Yeah,
Yeah.
helping to lift that gate and say, okay, I'm not at the decision-making point now. And some people think, well, when I'm talking to myself and trying to figure out how I feel about it, isn't that having cognitive control? Doesn't that take frontal lobe kind of skills to think about it just with how I feel about the emotion? It's not really.
Mm.
The struggle is they might not have the list, the vocabulary, the agency over their emotions to label. And so you sit there and it's like a pinball, going back and forth between the bumpers. The thought becomes that pinball because it's hard to actually label, especially if it's someone or something we really care about. We have to label it with maybe not the most positive emotional label at the time. And so we avoid that. I don't want to. No, we think it's labeling the whole person or the whole event or the whole mission. No, it's just in that moment. How do you feel about it in that moment? And when the moment's gone, you'll change your feelings about it once you can think about it.
Yeah, I
Excellent
think the
example.
yeah, I think the green brain is,
Mm-hmm.
just a part of part of me now. I want to keep that in my,
Yeah,
wherever, so that I can, use it in practice.
yeah,
Um,
nice.
yeah, it's just yeah, good visual.
It comes with its own, complementary skills. And obviously, if you want more, I have more. But for you today, you're welcome to know that there's more classes and there's more skills for you to advance. The next, you can learn more about how to manage your emotions, how to label them, that you can break this down into even smaller pieces so that now that you have agency, there's hundreds of tools to control. But if you don't have agency, then the tools are kind of a waste of time. So that's why it's a foundational and a pre-tool. So if you would like to stay, I will give you extra time and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And I'll see you next time.